Hello, this video is going to be an update of what I've been doing playing with this Explore Scientific iEXOS 100 mount. I haven't used it a whole lot yet, but mainly just because I've got the AVX and I've had it for 5 years or something, and I really like it. But I've thought about, sometime it might be nice to have a lighter mount. And also I've thought about times when I'm using these little cameras and stuff, maybe have two of them set up at once. They're not that hard to set up. So anyway, if you remember, I made a do-it-yourself mount for my DSLRs that I was using with the AVX mount. And it actually could be used on here, but I had added a whole bunch of weight to it, because the AVX actually likes having a lot of weight on it. This thing here is really designed for smaller equipment. Like anything else, I'm always assuming, everybody wants to add a lot more weight, but it's really not designed for a lot of weight. This one weight that's on here right now, actually, it's an Explore Scientific weight. This came with the 4-inch f9.8 refractor that I bought, that I reviewed. It was the AR102, and that's the one that had the little hand cranks to run the mount. I still use that every now and then. That's nice to just set up and kind of casually view. And that big 4-inch refractor is really nice on the AVX with the go-to and all that. And I've done some photography. The only issue with that big tube with photography, it doesn't take much wind to start moving it. Anyway, I wanted to come up with a DIY type mount for my DSLRs specifically for this, without adding all those extra huge fender washers, because I added, like, I think it was 8 pounds or more of weight to that other one. So I've got this Dovetail is the one that came with this mount since I bought the HD version. And I don't know if that was just a special one-time off thing during this past winter. When I bought it, I paid for the upgrade and it's the same mount head as the lighter weight iEXOS 100, but the tripod is considered medium duty, and it's a lot sturdier looking. The tripod does not match up with something like an AVX or a EQ5, a Skywatcher EQ5, anything like that. Those are heavier yet. But anyway, I wanted this particular one, I'll have to spin it around to show you, but it has lines with numbers just showing you how many millimeters are on it. So it's like a ruler basically on this opposite side, and I'll give you a close-up of it. But that just helps you center it and stuff. So I decided, well, I'm going to write the stuff down. So right now I've got my 400 millimeter lens on, and I was able to actually move this back down from center with this one. With my 200 millimeter lens, I went forward some up this way, and even forward more with my 300 millimeter. And this guide scope I'm using, this is not the same guide scope and camera that I've been using on the other. And the only reason is I knew that I might want to set up both of them at the same time. That's like, well, I'm going to have to be able to guide both of them at the same time if I do. And as luck would have it, I actually bought this little guide scope. It's an Orion 50 millimeter. I bought this before I had that other one, and it didn't come with a camera. I just stumbled into it cheap on eBay, and I tried to do guiding with my old cameras that I had, the old standard definition, like a Malin cam, which can work, but you're better off to buy these others. And then this winter, around Christmas time, at the same time I was buying the iEXOS, Orion which you probably heard, I guess they're gone, had this special guide camera on sale, and it's a Meade brand camera, and it was $49.99 free shipping, which for a guide camera is dirt cheap. So I thought, well, I'm going to take the chance. So I bought it, and it works. You know, it's just a little different than the others, but it works fine. I've tried it out and guided with it. So this one here, the focuser is different. The 60 millimeter guide scope has the helical focuser. So this one here, it's got 3 set screws. I set it into a space and then tighten it. It'd be nice to have a little, one of those spacer rings on here. This is a 1 1/4 inch tube to put it on the camera, you know, and then I could get focus back right away. But at least right now, I haven't planned to take it apart. I'm just kind of trying to keep it dedicated. Let's see, I've got this on the 400 millimeter. This was actually, like I say, this was my lightest setup. But this whole thing right here weighs about, I think it was 5 pounds, 11 ounces approximately. I tried to weigh it on a postal scale, standing it straight up, which is a little awkward, but it's close. This counterweight weighs almost the same amount, about 5 pounds, 11 ounces. The counterweights that come with this mount, it comes with 2 little black ones. Each of those is 2 pound, 5 ounces. I think they're supposed to be a kilogram each. So 2 of those is 4 pound, 10. One of these is like 5 pound, 11. There's room, plenty of room to put them on there, because the 2 doubled up are about, I guess, slightly smaller than this since it weighs less. And so anyway, so far I haven't had to, I've set them up, balance them tonight, and I'm able to use just this one weight with either the 400 millimeter lens, the 200, or the 300. Right now I've got this up here so close, there's like a finger width of space between the top of the counterweight bar and the weight. And when I use my 200 millimeter, I can have about 2 fingers worth of space. And with the 300, it takes, I got about 3 fingers worth of space. And then, like I say, I've changed this, and I've got them written down. And after I test it, I'll end up maybe marking them on here or something. And I'm also thinking about maybe I'll cut off this excess down here off the bottom. Oh, you can see all that. I think it all shows. But my back hole that I have drilled is back here. That's for my 200. So really, the only issue I have with it is if I point this straight up, this can hit a tripod leg here. So if I do that, I'd be able to image a little farther into the zenith and that, into the, when I cross the north-south line. So as you can see here, it'll hit, and then as far as that goes, I'm seeing that these screws will too. These are all threads. But I can still go like this much, which I'm probably, I don't have any kind of marking on here, but it looks like it might be 75 degrees, so it's up there quite a bit. But it just depends on where you're pointed anyway. There's always this thing about an equatorial mount. Let's see, I will put the other cameras on here too and show you how they fit. So here I've got my 300 millimeter lens on the same Nikon D50. And all I had to do, I'm using just still 1 counterweight, and I've slid it down. It was like 1 finger width away, now it's 3. And before I had this slid backwards like 10 millimeters from having the bar centered, and now I've moved it forward. I think it was forward 10 millimeters instead of backwards like 20. I just tried to weigh this. This setup weighs about 6.5 pounds. And now, while I'm thinking about it, I know there are people that are using something like 80 millimeter SV Boney or whatever type of refractor on these. I remember one guy said he had I think it was an 80, it was either an 80 or a 90, with a DSLR, and I think he had a guiding camera on it, and he had around, I think he had 12 pounds of payload, and it was working pretty good. So here I'm looking like 6.5 pounds of equipment. So now I've got my 200 millimeter lens up here, my smaller one, and I don't think I forgot to move this back yet. I have to move it farther forward to get it balanced, but it's okay for just this. I don't have to worry about that to show you. But if you also notice, I've got a nice space here. I've got 6 or 8 inches between the back of my guide camera and the mount head. And the reason I did that intentionally, with my AVX, I found a lot of times it's a little snug. I've been able to make it work, but when I have the USB cable plugged in, sticking out, sometimes it wants to catch up here on the motor housing. And if it does that while you're slewing from one object to another or just tracking, which in this case it's a deck move, so it would just be when I'm slewing, but it'd make it stall out. So here's the other side of the dovetail. I'm not sure how well this is in focus, but it's marked in millimeters, and it shows about like 140 each direction. So it should be about a 13-inch, I think it's a 13-inch dovetail. That's kind of a standard. So as long as I'm showing you this, I'll show you a few little things that I mentioned in a previous video. There's a couple unusual things. For unlocking your right Ascension, you have a little knurled knob here. If you go to tighten this a little tight, it's kind of rough on the skin. Maybe that was intentional so you wouldn't crank it too tight. And the declination one is over here on the counterweight, which I have a little bit of a difficult time getting used to this. I think if I use it enough, I'll remember, because I'm used to having like a locking bar up here somewhere near your saddle area to lock a declination, because down here usually I'm thinking I tighten up this counterweight bar because it threads in, so I'm not usually wanting to reach here and grab something and loosen it because I don't want to loosen the counterweight bar. But I get used to that idea, and it works nice. This is a nice smooth mount. So here's your polar adjustment knob for adjusting altitude when you're polar aligned. And here you have 2 of them, one on each side for moving it east and west. And that's part of the HD thing. You can actually buy this little piece separately. It fits between the mount head and the tripod. And you can use the polar adjuster on either tripod. But it was, like I say, it was part of the HD upgrade kit. I really like that. It's nice to have. I guess it's not a necessity. One of the guys that I had mentioned that said he had a 80 millimeter refractor did not have the polar adjuster add-on, so he didn't bother spending that extra money. Let's see, I guess cables are always something. I had unplugged this for a second so I could show you that. And it's possible to run into this and get tangled into it. I've seen where some people have just found a way to kind of strap it or up or something, or if I know I'm going over there, I'll just watch out for it. I haven't used it enough to really have an issue. So when I had an issue with this cable getting in the way, it was because of my long bolts that I've got here, these all threads. They're 1/4 by 20. And while I'm thinking about it, I will show you how I mounted my piece of inexpensive wood on here. So here's your dovetail bar. This is the side without the metric rule on it. And I've used 2 holes, one on each end, and it doesn't have 1/4 by 20. These were number 10 by 24 machine screws work. And I used a nut under there too. So I didn't thread it into the bar itself. I've just got the bolt going through it. For my guide scope, I've also got number 10 by 24 in one of these little dovetail holders that you can buy for less than $10, depending on where you find them, you know, $10 or whatever, or a little less online. And it's, you know, just a standard Vixen type saddle for a finder scope. One of my next ideas, this is the polar scope that came with the HD kit, and I've put it in a little like finder scope type bracket that's made really, I think they advertised it to use with a laser, if you get one of the little green lasers, and that's what I bought it for. And when I was thinking about this, yeah, the way it mounts up here, this thing here is held in with very small screws, because when they originally designed this, all they needed was screws that were good enough to put this motor cover on. So they're only 1/8 of an inch long, 1/4 of an inch long. They're really small. And if you have this on here and you bump it, this piece here wobbles real easy. And I was worried that, you know, it could even be stripping out the threads, you know, just if you do that a bunch of times. But I started wondering earlier tonight if this thing would fit inside that laser finder holder, and it does. And I haven't tried it out yet, but I'm thinking of finding a way. I'd have to, obviously, this would, you know, I would do it before I put all this stuff on. So what I'm thinking is I'll make some kind of a shim so that I can actually mount this in here where the dovetail is and use it to check polar alignment. Now I'll have to figure out a few things, because ideally when you do your polar alignment, you know, since I'm using this, you could easily be off here on north and south or east and west, either one. You want to have a consistent position, you hope, which can happen even, see the other one, the motor cover, well, it can move too, at least in RA, but it doesn't move in north and south. But I could, when I move this, the silver part here does not move. The black part does when I move in north and south. So I could put a piece of tape on here, like just white paper tape, and take a razor blade and slice it, and then whenever you set up, you just make sure you line up the edge of the tape. And I'd do the same thing on both axes. So I just need, I'm going to have to play with it and see if I can make it work. Like I say, I haven't tried it outdoors yet, and I haven't made a shim for this, but that won't be difficult. I just need something to make this wider, because I don't think this would fit. I don't think the bolt would reach it. So hopefully that'll be in one of my future videos with something and actually have it working. I mean, ideally a polar scope would be, looking through your little peephole here, this is just a rubber plug here that keeps dust out. It's a little dust plug. So right now they've got a little peephole that comes through here that you can look through. I've tried it. The very first time I tried it, I actually found Polaris really fast. And then I've tried it a few times since, and it wasn't that easy after that. I've also played with the idea of shining a green laser through here, which you can do, but you have to get it aligned just right, because there's enough play that you might not be going out of this hole. But if you get that in there, that could get you in the ballpark of Polaris real quick, and then maybe make it easier to find. that'll be one of the future things I play with on here, trying to find ways to more easily polar align it. Let's see. When we lock down our dovetail bar, this actually has 2 bolts, which is unusual. Nothing wrong with it. You have your big one, and then there's a smaller one here coming in at a 45-degree angle, which I guess the idea is it keeps your bar from sliding backwards because it's coming in and it'll push in. Now I've made one of the other videos I made on this, one of the first ones, I cover all the stuff about the software and everything to run this. It's a little bit different than standard ones. You can run it with a Wi-Fi type setup or wired. And Explore Scientific has a software, I think it's called Explore Stars, that's designed for this, and you can just download it from their website. And it's not half bad, but it's for a Wi-Fi type connection. The idea is that you can either use like your laptop, or if you have an Android tablet, and when they say tablet, they're not talking about your smartphone. It's got to be like at least 7 or 8 inches. It's got to be pretty good size. And I don't have a tablet like that. I've tried it with a laptop, and then I've gone by wire with a either a laptop or a desktop computer. And then you don't use the Explore Stars software. So there's a few little interesting things about that. Anyway, if you're more interested in, if you still want to learn more about the software and everything and more about the mount itself, check out that video because I tried to cover that pretty good.